our property
I'm gonna let
values.
Mrs. Bradford explain this in totality.
So, you know, all of our property valuations went up in the county. It was our valuation update. So, of course, if the valuations go up, the school's getting more money. No, not really. So, in general, our district does not receive additional revenue as a result of an increase in property values and property taxes. So House Bill 920, I think, was back in 1976, and it offered relief to taxpayers by restricting the amount of money that a school district could receive on their property taxes due to inflation. So it limits the dollars collected from a voted tax to the amount that was actually put through at that time. So our last property tax levy was 1989, so whatever that amount was certified at that point in time, that's all that it can bring in. So therefore, when your property taxes increase, there's a reduction factor that's applied to it, and then it lowers that effective rate. So there's a voted rate and there's an effective rate, and I'll go into it later. But it reduces that rate so that it only still brings in the amount that we had passed back in 1989. Now, the only thing that we would get in additional property taxes is when we have someone who has just built a house and it's coming on. So we get new construction money, but we do not get it from regular residentials that have already been paying their taxes. I hope that helps a little bit with that. So hopefully this will help, because I'm a visual person. So this is all the millages that we have in this district. So we have inside mills, and that's 4.7, and that is by law. So the law established a certain amount of millage that a township and an area got, and it's not just the school district that gets that, but the townships and the villages, and everyone has to share those 10 mills. Out of those 10, we have 4.7. We can never get rid of those. That's by constitution. So we have a current operating outside millage that was passed in 1989. That's our latest one. It was voted at 25.3 mils. Well, right now, we are only paying 12 mils of it because the effective rate lowers what you're paying to only bring in what this was voted in. So you can see with inflation that at that time, valuations to bring in the amount was 25.3 mils, but that same valuation to bring in that amount right now is 12.5 mils. That's that inflation rate. So we also have one back in 1976. That was it was voted in at 5 mils. We're only collecting at 2.7 because we can't collect more than the 5 mils is supposed to bring in. We do have a bond, which is our mortgage. That was in outside mills. That was voted through in 1999. That was 2 mils. That will expire. The other ones will not expire. That one will expire in the end of 2021. And that's when our mortgage is going to be paid off on these buildings. So it is also reduced down because of property valuations going up. So it's reduced down to 1.8 to only bring in the amount that it's supposed to be bringing in that was voted. Along with our classroom facilities, when you build a building, they have a property tax that goes through. It's a $0.5 mil. It went through in 2001. And so it is, the effective rate on it is 0.29, so we're not collecting at the full rate there. That again will expire in 2021, so that's something that the district and the administration have had to look at in our 5-year forecast, because when those go away, this is for any maintenance on our facilities and buildings here, just on the buildings that we bought. So, well, built, well, we bought them too, but. So when that goes away, that amount is going to have to be put into our general fund to be able to offset the loss of that. Because we do use that for maintenance on our buildings. We can use it for HVAC maintenance and things like that. So that's something that we have had to look at too.
What does that generate?
I think it's about 50 to 70,000.
Yes. And the reason I ask is because that is all done on PM. Most of it goes to our PM on these buildings, and it can only go towards the buildings that were built during the project in 2001 through 2003. So anything that, it doesn't go towards the field house, it can't go towards anything else other than these buildings. So, and just to give you an example, 3 years ago, if it generates 20,000 or 50,000, I believe our filters in the two buildings cost about $22,000 to replace. So, over almost half of the funds that we collect off of the half mil takes care of replacing the filters. What will happen if the levy does not pass? In June, a list of cuts was presented to the board, and the board approved those cuts that will take place starting July 1st, 2020. Those cuts, those reductions amount of $3 million. Obviously, as Mrs. Bradford mentioned, we have made cuts, done things obviously since that moment. It could amount to less than that because of the fact that you saw we had $220,000 off the top. It makes a difference. But we're still looking at catastrophic cuts and change of doing business at Amanda Clear Creek Schools. Aren't cuts just a threat? No, they're not. Because of the fact that we are in a situation that we are with our funding, at some point in time we have to make the necessary cuts in order to make sure that we can extend our school as long as we can. If you look at the chart, if we could be assured that the levy would pass in November 2021, we could collect full collection in 2022, we could do those things. However, with no assurances of what's happening, what's going to happen in regards to the vote, we must take these measures to make sure that we are protected. Absolutely, your child will be able to graduate from Amanda Clear Creek if they choose to graduate from Amanda Clear Creek. We will provide the education that's required. We will provide them with the credits that's required. We will have to make a reduction in our credit amounts to our state minimum, but we will be able to provide those credits to our kids. Questions?
All right, I know everyone is burning with questions after that. So you have your notepads and you have your pens. Write down your questions if you can think of them. To get us started, we have some questions that were emailed in earlier, so I'm gonna go ahead and get those going.
He's scary, Mallory.
So I have one first I'm gonna get started with. Can you talk a little bit about how the cuts will affect the culture here at Amanda Clear Creek?
Well, I believe culture is what you make it. But however, with limited things, the many things that will be cut will limit some of the things that many of our kids do. It will change our culture and our day-to-day life here as we know it. Many of the things that our kids do at Amanda Clear Creek in regards to paying forward and being involved, those things will, with the cuts that have been recommended, will go away. The culture will change into a negative effect.
The things that are, we have a lot of people who have graduated from here. They went to school all through here. They're raising their families here. So the culture that they know when they were in high school and growing up, it's going to be it will be a different culture with that. We will not be able to afford to have some of those programs that they were involved in. So of course, for each family, that culture is going to change a little bit differently, but for overall, it will change.
I think this makes the 9th or 10th time that we've attempted to pass this levy. Many of the questions that are asked tonight are the same ones we discussed back in 2014 when they started the process of trying to renew it. It finally gets to the point that I feel like to this point our kids have not had to notice a big effect on them in regards to their daily life at school. This will have this is the time that it will affect them. They've talked about it. It does concern them.
What are some good things that are going to happen to this school as a result of the levy passing if it does?
Obviously, one of the things that we talked about in the strategic plan was There's educational opportunities that we want to look at. We need to look at CTE programming. We need, I would first and foremost want to take a look at safety issues. I would like to consider a school resource officer. I would like to look about anything we could add in regards to safety measures that keeps our kids protected each and every day. We've talked about having coaches that are a non-evaluative measure for our math and science and reading more than anything else. We talked about a curriculum supervisor. We talked about our communications, to continue the communications piece that we have started and people seem to like, so we want to make sure we keep enhancing that. And one of the things that the strategic plan talked about was creating this financial stability. Now, again, I'm not sure people see that, but things we talk about, we've been very conservative in regards to our expenditures because of not knowing. And we have deferred maintenance over the years that we need to get caught up, as Mr. Kern mentioned in the opening. We need to address those issues. We have structure issues in regards to not safety, but it needs to be fixed and taken care of.
How will the levy impact recruiting and hiring new teachers? And I'm assuming that you have some teachers who are getting ready to retire.
Yes. However, that was one of the goals of the strategic plan, was to create trainings, professional development, to retain the very best staff that we have in order to make sure our kids are getting the very best education each and every day.
And the fact of the matter is too, is when you have a school district that is constantly talking and having to do cuts, or it does not have a levy through and has been trying to get a levy, you know, it hinders people to put in for our school district. You know, we could be really missing out on a lot of really good teachers that are wanting to come in, not saying that the ones that came in aren't, they're phenomenal. My thing is I want to be that school district where everyone wants to come. We know how great it is. We know the wonderful programs that are happening here and what our kids do, and we want other people to witness that and be able to come in and really be proud of coming in and wanting to be here with us, because we do have those resources to be able to let them excel and our kids excel.
Can you talk about the impact on busing if the levy fails?
Well, we had recommended that the busing 9 through 12 will be discontinued, and all busing in a 2-mile radius will be discontinued, including that as a K-12 discontinuation of busing. ADA busing continues, Career Center busing continues by law.
So that means students who live outside of a 2-mile radius will be bused?
If they're in grades K through 8.
Okay. But students who live less than 2 miles away are gonna have to walk, even if they're in
Or be
kindergarten?
brought to school
Okay,
by their parents or some other form of transportation.
wow. What about the impact, let me see what this question is. The impact, on the length of the school day or the number of periods you're gonna have during the day?
As right now, the school length the day has not been changed. School length has not been changed. Obviously, periods will be longer because we do not have as many offerings, but the length of day remains.
I have a couple more questions on here, but does anyone else have one I can grab? Anything you're curious about?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do I have to write it in?
No, go for it. You can ask.
And several of these, I apologize, I don't know you, but a lot of these guys know me and know me that I am a big supporter, but just some questions just from things that I hear. As far as what the school offers, when you go and I've tried to study the report card and some of the data that's there. So the data that's there, and this isn't a loaded question, just how accurate is the data on the report card as compared to other school districts?
Well, I can tell you, there was one district in Fairfield County that scored above a C, and that was Pickerington, which was a B. The rest of us scored a C.
Yep.
And we look at Pickaway County, Logan Elm had a B, and the rest of them had a C, I believe. And I would tell you, to answer the report card question, I'm a big believer in the report card. I don't pound people with it. But I don't disregard it either. Many schools have decided to disregard the information that the report card comes because They claim that ODE can't explain it, so therefore they can't explain it to their people. All I know is we are rated, we are judged, we are reported, and that's one of the things that we talk about with our strategic plan was enhance these programs and make sure these programs are getting the very best trained teachers that we can provide and do any PD that we need to do. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
So let me maybe clarify
Okay.
a little bit deeper financially, the financial data that's reported on the site.
well, I can tell you this, if you looked in Central Ohio, any district that had an A or B was by far and away one of the richest school districts in Central Ohio. And to your point though, I think when you look at, talk about the 2%, I think it's very important that we are able to put money into our students in the classroom, our teachers, so that we have the very best. And I don't know, I can't sit here and tell you today it's going to guarantee our report card goes to a B or an A, but I do think when you look at the results, money has made a difference with those school districts that have resources that we don't have.
To that point, one of the things that I noticed that in a trend for all the different school districts, and I don't understand what the definition of what they say economically challenged is. It appears to be we have one of the highest segments of economically challenged when you look at the breakdown of the segment of the students in the school. So my point is that, you know, a lot of the things that I have heard and you hear, they don't revolve from at least what I've heard, and maybe somebody can speak differently. It's not necessarily what the school does or doesn't do, it's all been financially related. So, to me, I don't know, and you know, I posed the question to you, you know, one day, just in regards to, when you look at cost per student. You know, to me, one of the big things that jumped out on one of the higher parts, or the higher portion of the page was the average teacher salary. I mean, we're the lowest of anywhere around here, by far, more than 10% of most schools. I mean, I think to me, with all the questions about the financials of the school, I think those are things that should be discussed and brought up. Because, again, maybe I don't know everything, because I'm sure I know I don't, but I'm saying maybe I don't know everything. But what I see is that, you know, coming from my background and what we operate and how we operate, and you know, when you talk about revenues and forecasting, and, you know, to some extent, you know, I think about funding, I think of, you know, you take a 401, the average rate of return on a 401 is 5 to 8%. So when you look at the consistency of the revenue that the school is seeing and trying to budget, I mean, again, those are things similar to what, you know, is in the presentation, whether it's, you know, employee expense and all these things that I just think, because what I hear, all the questions and the negative speak is in regards to the financials. So as much of that can be out there, you know, I don't know what you know, I look around the room and there's, you know, 9, 10 people in here, and I don't know if that's been the norm for this meeting, you know, and I go back to the HSA meetings and half the people got up and left. How much do people really want to be educated? So I guess the content of what you try to communicate, and then the segment of our community, you know, I think all of those need to be taken into play with what it is that's communicated to everyone.
That's really helpful, and I think there's a fine line between, you know, giving people a really in-depth financial education and also, you know, at this point, we're 40-some
Amen
days
to
out, persuading voters that are on the fence. So, but that's,
Because, I don't mean to interrupt you, but House Bill 920, I can't tell you how much stuff that, because I want to understand, I want to be able to educate myself and speak to people who have questions. And there is a lot of stuff out there to try to understand how this goes.
we can
So-
definitely add a lot of that to the website, look into it for the questions. And like Mr. Dick said, we have a 20-page frequently asked questions section on the website. And we can also follow up with you after the fact, looking into that and giving you more in-depth data. But that's a really good point that you pointed out, that we need to just dig in a little more on matching the financial information to the report card that's out there.
And I think the other thing too, the last point is, I think about, and just again, what I hear about other school districts and what it is to offer, you know, and whether it's college credit programs and, you know, there's, you know, again, we know people in every school district, but, you know, if you've got a school district that offers whatever the program may be, and whether it's, you know, someone that's gonna go to college and, you know, basically they can take enough credit hours, whether it's through OUL, and again, I don't understand all the programs, but to me, you know, if they can take enough credit hours that eliminates a semester in college, what's the value on that? And so what are those other programs that are out there, I think that, you know, what we can't offer, and maybe what we should offer to compare apples to apples to the other school districts, to show that we are lagging behind, and those monies, you know, yes, you're paying it forward, because if you have a student that's going to college, and, you know, that's money that, yeah, you know, you would pay it you either pay now or you pay later, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And to your point about the attendance, this doubles the largest crowd we've had at a town hall meeting without a deal. Two, Mrs. Bradford mentioned the part, Mr. Bryan, about the fact that retaining teachers, and it's not always about money, but at the same time, that does have a determining factor when you're offering someone a position. You know, if it's the same thing, doing the same job at Bloom Care or Burn Union, if the money's not the same, you're probably not gonna get that person to stay. To the CCP courses issue that you just brought up, and this is where I'm very surprised when people say, who pays for that? And we say we do. No, seriously, who pays for that?
We do.
We do. I mean, and when you stop and think about, and we will go over this number with our latest numbers at our State of the District address in October, but what gets deducted from our ADM money is astronomical in regards to the CCP courses. Mr. Hinton told me the other day we have last year we had 99 courses taken for the 2018-19 school year. We have 94 courses taken this semester, in the first semester, which is great. I think any parent who doesn't let their kid do this got to rethink things, because this is freebie. This is, what number are we talking?
So last year, I believe it was about 200,000 to 300,000 total. I mean, because we are doing community schools, when we send kiddos out to community schools, you know, I every time I see the commercial, and I think I'm not gonna say the name of it, but every time I see the commercial where they're like, it's tuition free, it's not tuition free, because we are paying that. And I yell at the TV every single time. So we've got community schools that we are paying out on that. We are paying scholarships out for special ed students. We've got an open enrollment that we are paying out. And these are things that come from our state funding. So when the state says, Jill, we're gonna give you $6,020 to educate a student, but you're only gonna get 57.4% of it, so we'll say $3,500, okay? But when I pay out to go to a community school, or I pay out to pay open enrollment, it is the $6,020 that we pay out. It is not our share that we get for that student. And so with CCP, what we see then is it is a reduced rate. We do get the minimum in the school district, in the school institutions that we pay, and it depends on how they take it. So if they're taking it on campus, it's usually about $166 a credit hour. If we are looking at them having dual enrollment and they're taking it here, it's about half of that. And then if we are giving our own dual enrollment with our teacher, then it's even half of that. So we've been working around. Mr. Hinton's been great trying to get additional resources for our kids through the CCP.
And you'll see it at a board action of us agreeing to pay teachers who are teaching CCP courses here so that they don't leave. There's an extra stipend that goes along with it. It saves us many dollars.
Don't forget, write your questions down, raise your hand if you have them. I have two questions that were texted to me. One's from a former teacher here and one from a former student. The former teacher would like to know, what reason would someone who no longer has students in the school district but lives here have to support the levy?
Well, I think, I've been in 3 or 4 different other communities. I don't think there's a stronger community than this one, but it evolves around this school. And that sounds arrogant and pompous, but this community does revolve around these 2 buildings. We can all sit around and say, no, it doesn't, or not very much. It does. You will see an adverse effect on property values. You'll see an adverse effect on this village. It will have adverse effects on all of us. And I've said this many times, I don't want to sound, people were concerned about the valuation process of their property in July. Well, they may not have to worry about that much longer. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because it will affect property value if we can't provide a school that's at least, that challenges other school districts. I mean, we gotta be able to challenge and provide the same thing area school districts do.
I know it sounds crazy too, but if you remember the slide that showed what our effective rates are, when your property valuations then go down, that effective rate has to go up in order to still bring in what it is. So even though your property valuations are gonna go down, your taxes will be going up because that effective rate will then start raising up to meet. I know when I try to tell people that, they're like, what? They don't understand, but when you look at that with that effective rate, it just jumps out at you that when it starts going up, your property taxes are gonna go up at that point in time, even though your valuations are going down.
All right. The former student said, OMG, WTF, again, how can I help? So what can people do if they want to help? If they live here or if they don't live here, how can people support getting this levy passed?
I think I know what all those acronyms mean.
I'm not going to tell you, but you can figure it out.
The help piece is, we have tried to reach out to our class presidents, social media wise, to get them involved. A lot of times our kids go off to school, they forget about voting, even though their resident address is home. They can make sure that people are registered, get out early vote. I know Whitney may speak to some things here in regards to our upcoming events that they want to be involved in. A lot of times, location affects what they can and cannot do. Have them reach out to Mrs. Bowers or aceslevy.com. It's never easy. Money always helps to help support a campaign of this size and what we're trying to get across and accomplished.
All right, last call for questions. Anyone curious about anything? All right, well, thank you.